Welcome back, American coin hunter. Imagine holding in your hand a coin so small that it's almost forgotten, yet so rich in history and hidden stories that it could transform from everyday pocket change into a treasure for collectors. The United States Lincoln cent, and especially those struck in the 1970s, are among the most fascinating coins in modern numismatics. These 1-cent coins, produced in the early years of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse era, are more than just currency. They are mechanical artifacts of production, accidental art, unexpected errors, and ongoing market intrigue. The Lincoln cent you hold in your fingers represents a lineage that stretches back more than a century. The penny denomination itself was first authorized by the Coinage Act of 1792 and over time evolved through many designs, metals, and phases of production. But it was in 1909, on the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, that the Lincoln cent made its debut on the United States coinage stage. Designed by Victor David Brenner, this new cent replaced the long-running Indian head cent and brought a portrait of one of America's most beloved presidents into the everyday economy. That portrait would go on to become one of the longest-running coin obverse in U.S. history. By 1970, the penny had long been a fixture of American commerce. At that point, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse design, introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, was already a decade old. This design featured Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the imposing Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, a symbol of unity and remembrance. Every penny struck in the 1970s would carry this design, a design that became iconic and deeply familiar to generations of Americans. The standard specifications for these coins were straightforward. Each Lincoln cent struck in the 1970s was intended to weigh approximately 3.11 grams, have a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, and be composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a bronze alloy typical for the era. On the obverse, you would see the right-facing profile of Abraham Lincoln, his name inscribed alongside the motto "In God We Trust" and the word "Liberty," as well as the coin's date, and, on some pieces, the mint mark indicating where it was produced. On the reverse was the Lincoln Memorial, flanked by the words "United States of America" and 1 cent. The image was detailed enough that even tiny flaws or shifts in the dies would produce distinguishable and collectible varieties. Mint marks are tiny letters stamped on the coin to show where they were struck. For 1970 cents, you could encounter no mint mark for coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint, a D for the Denver Mint, or an S for the San Francisco Mint. These mint marks, tiny though they may be, create distinct groups in the coin collector world. Some mint mark varieties, when paired with certain anomalies or errors, can be especially sought after. Let's begin with the year 1970 itself. A 1970 cent may, at first glance, look like an ordinary penny, copper-colored, humble, valued at just 1 cent for everyday commerce. But numismatists, coin collectors, know that hidden among the billions of cents struck can be rare varieties and errors that spark intense interest and, in rare cases, command prices in the thousands of dollars. One especially interesting variety from 1970 is the 1970s small-date Lincoln cent. In this variation, produced at the San Francisco Mint, the size and spacing of the numerals in the date differ slightly from the more common large-date variety. Identifying this small date requires careful comparison, but experienced collectors can spot it and recognize its relative scarcity. These small-date coins, particularly in high grades, can be more desirable than their common counterparts. Another truly collectible 1970 variety is the 1970s double die obverse. In this case, a misalignment occurred during die preparation. The die that struck the obverse received 2 impressions that were slightly offset. The result was striking doubling across key design elements: the date, the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." And even portions of Lincoln's portrait may show doubled outlines. Such doubling is visible to the naked eye and attracts a great deal of collector attention. This doubled die error, known in numismatic circles as a DDO, can be significantly more valuable than a regular penny. Coins graded high by professional services, such as PCGS or NGC, have been known to trade for thousands of dollars, with uncirculated specimens in excellent condition fetching premium prices on the collector market. Beyond mint varieties and doubled dies, 1970 pennies can also occur with planchet errors. Instances where the blank metal disc that becomes the coin is incorrect. One dramatic example occurs when a 1970-cent design is accidentally struck onto a blank intended for a different denomination, such as a dime planchet. These pennies struck on dime planchets are noticeably smaller and lighter than regular cents, and their silvery color instantly reveals that something unusual has occurred. Collectors prize these anomalies, as they are unmistakable and unusual, and examples in good condition can sell at auction for hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their appearance and rarity. Errors can also take the form of off-center strikes, where the planchet is not perfectly aligned between the dies when struck, leaving a portion of the design cut off. These off-center coins can range from minor, just a few percent off-center, to dramatic, where half the design is missing, and their values typically increase with the degree of off-center error and their state of preservation. Another type of error found in 1970 cents is the broad-struck error. If a penny is struck outside of its retaining collar, it will expand outward, producing a coin noticeably larger and thinner in the middle with a smooth, spread-out rim. Some of these examples trade hands for modest sums, while particularly crisp specimens with strong luster and full detail can attract more attention from specialized collectors. As we move through the decade into 1971, 1972, and beyond, the patterns repeat, but with new surprises. The year 1972, for example, is notable among modern penny collectors because of its own double-die obverse varieties, particularly those with prominent doubling on the date and motto. These 1972 double dies are considered among the more collectible modern Lincoln cents due to their eye-catching appearance and relative scarcity compared with everyday circulation strikes. You will also find large date and small date varieties in other 1970s issues, subtle variations in numeral shapes or spacing that reveal themselves only to careful study or expert comparison. The 1974 Lincoln cent, for instance, sustained a notable aluminum penny experiment, one that never reached general circulation but left a fascinating legacy. In early 1974, the U.S. Mint briefly struck pennies in aluminum as a cost-saving measure when copper prices soared. These aluminum cents were intended to replace copper cents, but widespread issues with vending machines and X-ray machines led Congress to reject the change. Most of these aluminum planchets were destroyed, but a handful remain in private hands and are among some of the most intriguing error patterns from the decade. Not all 1970s error cents are dramatic or immediately recognizable. Some varieties involve subtle die doubling or phenomena, such as the floating roof effect on the Lincoln Memorial, a tiny die polishing artifact that makes part of the memorial's roof appear disconnected from the pillars below. These kinds of quirks may bring a modest premium over face value and add depth to a collection, though they are far less dramatic than the more rare double dies or planchet errors. The story of 1970s Lincoln cents is not just about the anomalies themselves, but about why collectors care so much about them. Unlike coins from the early 20th century that are rare simply because so few were struck or survived, most 1970s cents were struck in the millions. Enormous production runs typical of modern coinage. As we move further into the 1970s, it becomes clear that each penny is not just a simple coin, but a product of a complex industrial process that, despite strict quality controls, allowed for fascinating imperfections to slip through. The 1970s were a period of immense production for the U.S. Mint. In 1970 alone, the Philadelphia Mint struck over 5 billion Lincoln cents, while Denver contributed another 3 billion, and San Francisco, primarily producing proof sets, added roughly 45 million proof pennies. These enormous numbers mean that most 1970 cents are common, yet among these billions of coins, the rare anomalies are what capture the imagination of collectors. One of the most famous errors from 1970 is the 1970 double die obverse penny, especially from the San Francisco Mint, labeled as the 1970 SDDO. This error is characterized by dramatic doubling on Lincoln's face, the date, and inscriptions. To a casual observer, it may look like just a thicker line or shadowing, but to a trained eye, the doubling is unmistakable. Coins like these, when in high grade, have sold for thousands of dollars, creating intense competition among collectors and driving them to carefully inspect every penny pulled from rolls. The thrill of spotting a double die in circulation, knowing that perhaps only a few hundred exist, is part of what makes these coins so captivating. Beyond double dies, the 1970s produced other striking anomalies, some accidental, some resulting from experimental minting. One fascinating example is the off-center strike error, which occurs when a planchet is not properly aligned in the coining press. The resulting coin can have part of the design missing, sometimes dramatically, showing only a fragment of Lincoln's face or the memorial. These coins are not just mistakes. They are unique, frozen moments of production that never happen twice in the exact same way. The value of such an off-center coin is directly proportional to the degree of misalignment and the coin's condition. A small off-center strike may be worth a few dollars above face value, while one dramatically off-center with sharp detail can be collectible for hundreds or even over $1,000. Planchet errors are another intriguing category. During the 1970s, a few pennies were struck on wrong metal blanks, such as aluminum or nickel planchets intended for other denominations. A penny struck on a dime or nickel planchet is immediately recognizable by its unusual size, weight, and color. These coins are extraordinarily rare because most were caught during production or destroyed before entering circulation. A genuine planchet error from this era can command prices far beyond typical circulation coins. Collectors actively seek these mistakes, often attending coin shows, scouring rolls, or consulting professional grading services to verify authenticity. In addition to physical errors, 1970s pennies present subtle die variations that are fascinating for advanced collectors. Minor differences in die preparation or polishing can create what are known as repunched mint marks, die cracks, and other small anomalies. While they may seem insignificant, these imperfections tell a story about the minting process and become part of the coin's narrative. For instance, a small die crack running through the base of Lincoln's neck or along the memorial columns can be cataloged and verified, and such examples often fetch a modest premium in the market. Collectors also pay attention to proof coins from this decade. Proof pennies are struck on specially polished planchets with a high-quality die to create a mirror-like finish. The San Francisco Mint produced these coins for collectors, with meticulous detail and sharpness. Proof pennies from the 1970s are far less common in circulation because they were not intended for general spending. The 1970s proof Lincoln cent, for instance, is highly sought after in pristine condition. When graded as PR65 or higher, these coins can sell for hundreds of dollars, especially when a minor anomaly, like a die clash or slight doubling, is present. A particularly captivating aspect of 1970s pennies is the variation in mint mark placement and style. While seemingly a minor detail, the size, location, and orientation of the mint mark can define different collectible varieties. For example, the small s versus large S proofs are distinguished by the size of the S mint mark, a detail that is barely noticeable without magnification but is critical for accurate classification. Knowledgeable collectors examine these features carefully because even a slight difference can differentiate a coin worth a few cents from one worth hundreds. The 1970s were also a period of metal experimentation. Rising copper prices made the mint investigate alternative compositions. While the majority of pennies from 1970 onward remained bronze, small tests and experiments included varying amounts of zinc and tin, and even the 1974 aluminum penny experiment, which, though mostly destroyed, left a handful of surviving specimens in private collections. These aluminum pennies are incredibly rare, and their story is intertwined with broader economic conditions, raw material costs, and legislative intervention. They are prime examples of how the production process intersects with historical context to create collectible numismatic items. The broader context of the Lincoln cent's value in the 1970s also ties into the coin's cultural symbolism. Lincoln, a figure universally recognized for his leadership and moral authority, appears on every penny. The Lincoln Memorial reverse reinforces the theme of national unity, with its imposing columns and intricate architectural detail. This connection to history amplifies the coin's appeal beyond mere metal value. Coins become artifacts of American identity, cherished not only for rarity, but for the story they carry. Collectors often view 1970s pennies as bridges between the classic early 20th century cents and the modern era, capturing the industrial precision and mass production of the latter period. Market values for 1970s Lincoln cents fluctuate based on scarcity, condition, and type of error. A regular circulated 1970 cent from Philadelphia is worth essentially face value. A high-grade uncirculated example might fetch a few dollars, while a 1970s small date or 1970s double die obverse in MS65 or higher can be worth thousands. Rare planchet errors, dramatic off-center strikes, or unique experimental pieces can exceed these values, creating excitement among collectors and at auctions. Though it is unrealistic to claim that any 1970s penny is worth hundreds of millions, the true value is in the story, condition, and rarity of specific anomalies. Collectors also treasure these coins for personal discovery. Rolling through bags of change, sifting through old jars of pennies saved by grandparents, or examining coin rolls purchased from banks can yield surprising finds. The thrill of finding a double die, off-center strike, or unusual mint mark in circulation mirrors the joy of treasure hunting, giving each coin a sense of adventure. This connection between the coin and the collector's experience is an essential part of why the 1970s Lincoln cents maintain strong interest even decades after their minting. The decade also features interesting subcategories of coins, such as the 1975, 1976, 1977, 1978, and 1979 cents. Each year has subtle variations, mint mark distinctions, and potential errors that collectors monitor. For example, the 1972 double die obverse is one of the most dramatic examples of a modern Lincoln cent double die, showing extensive doubling on the motto, date, and lettering. Similarly, 1976 coins can display die polishing marks that create ghost-like lines across the memorial, subtle errors that add uniqueness and collector value. As we move into 1971, the Lincoln cent continued to showcase the same classic design, yet subtle variations and errors make this year fascinating for collectors. The 1971 cent was produced at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, with Philadelphia coins carrying no mint mark and Denver coins displaying the small d. Production numbers were staggering. Philadelphia struck approximately 5.2 billion coins, while Denver produced around 2.3 billion, making circulation examples common. However, within these billions, some coins reveal hidden stories in the form of errors and minor varieties. One of the most sought-after varieties for 1971 is the 1971 double die obverse. Although less dramatic than the 1970 SDDO, it still displays noticeable doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," and the date. Collectors who examine coins under magnification often spot this subtle yet fascinating anomaly, and examples in high grade can fetch several $100s. In addition to double dies, 1971 pennies occasionally appear with die cracks, small raised lines on the coin caused by a split in the die during striking. These cracks often run along Lincoln's bust, the date, or the memorial columns on the reverse. While not as dramatic as off-center strikes, die cracks are valued because each crack is unique, effectively turning an ordinary coin into a one-of-a-kind artifact of mint history. Coins with prominent die cracks and high grades can trade for tens or even hundreds of dollars, particularly among error-focused collectors. Planchet anomalies also persisted in 1971. A handful of pennies were struck on planchets intended for other denominations, such as nickels or dimes, producing coins with odd size, weight, and color. These are extremely rare and highly prized, often selling for several $1,000s if authenticated. Even minor planchet imperfections, such as clipped planchets, lamination flaws, or incomplete alloy mixing, make coins collectible and demonstrate the complexity of mass-producing billions of coins while maintaining quality standards. Moving on to 1972. This year is particularly noteworthy because of the 1972 double die obverse, one of the most dramatic examples of modern Lincoln cent doubling. This double die is characterized by doubling on the motto, the word liberty, the date, and sometimes parts of Lincoln's portrait itself. Unlike subtle die variations, this doubling is easily visible without magnification, creating coins that are instantly recognizable to collectors and enthusiasts alike. A high-grade 1972 DDO in mint state can command several $1,000s at auction, making it one of the most desirable modern-era pennies. Philadelphia minted 1972 double die examples are less common and similarly sought after point 1972 also saw off-center strikes in both Philadelphia and Denver coins. These coins vary from slight misalignments to dramatic off-center strikes where half of Lincoln's face or the memorial is missing. Off-center coins are generally more valuable when the strike is more extreme and the coin remains in high-grade condition. A coin struck off-center by 20% may sell for a modest premium, whereas one struck off-center by 50% or more can fetch hundreds or even over $1,000 depending on its eye appeal and preservation. The 1973 Lincoln cent is another year with collectible varieties. While the majority of coins are typical circulation strikes, the year also produced proof coins in San Francisco, which remain highly desirable due to their mirror-like finish and sharp detail. The 1973 S-proof cent is collected both for its pristine condition and for minor die anomalies, such as die scratches or polishing lines. In uncirculated proof condition, these coins can sell for several $100s. Collectors also search for die cracks and minor doubling on 1973 cents. Although they are less dramatic than the 1972 DDO, point 1974 was a year of experimentation, as rising copper prices prompted the mint to explore alternative metals. The famous 1974 aluminum cent was struck as a test and never entered general circulation. Although the majority were destroyed, a very few survived and exist in private collections, making them legendary among numismatists. Aluminum coins are lighter, silver-colored, and easy to distinguish from standard copper cents. While extremely rare, these test coins are not legally available for sale to the public. Most documented examples are in museums or official mint collections. For the circulating 1974 pennies, collectors focus on minor errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or slight doubling that in 1975. The Lincoln cent retained its familiar appearance, yet collectors notice variations such as small date versus large date coins in the San Francisco proofs. These subtle differences in numeral size and shape create distinct collectible varieties. The 1975 S small date proof cent, for example, is rarer than the large date version and can command a significant premium in top condition. Circulation strikes from Philadelphia and Denver also occasionally exhibit die polishing lines, die cracks, and minor planchet anomalies, all of which are cataloged and collected by enthusiasts. The 1976 bicentennial celebration introduced additional interest in the Lincoln cent series. Although the 1-cent coin itself did not change design in 1976, some coins were part of special bicentennial proof sets. These sets were struck with extra care and finish, producing coins with superior detail and luster compared to standard circulation examples. Collectors prize these sets for their historical significance, as they commemorate the nation's 200th anniversary. Bicentennial proof cents in pristine condition often sell for several $100s. 1977, 1978, and 1979 continue the story with subtle variations, mint mark distinctions, and collectible errors. For example, the 1977 D penny occasionally appears with a repunched mint mark, creating an observable doubling of the D in Denver minted coins. These repunched mint marks are less dramatic than doubled dies, but are still highly desirable to specialized collectors. Die cracks, polishing lines, and off-center strikes also continue through these years, providing endless opportunity for discovery among coin enthusiasts. Proof coins from San Francisco in these years are generally more valuable than circulation strikes, particularly in higher grades or with minor die anomalies. Market values for 1970s pennies are closely tied to condition, rarity, and type of error. A regular circulation strike may be worth face value, whereas high-grade uncirculated coins can sell for a few dollars each. Error coins, like doubled dies, off-center strikes, and rare planchet errors, can fetch hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on rarity and condition. Proof coins, particularly those with small date or minor die anomalies, also command significant interest. Professional grading and authentication by PCGS, NGC, or ANACS add credibility and value to coins, enabling collectors to buy and sell with confidence. Collectors are also drawn to the thrill of discovery. Rolling through bank rolls, checking old jars of coins, or inspecting inherited collections can reveal unexpected finds. The joy of spotting a doubled die or an off-center strike in circulation, often by accident, drives collectors to continue exploring and sharing their finds. This element of adventure, combined with the historical significance of the Lincoln cent, makes the 1970s pennies a particularly rich field for numismatic exploration. The 1970s Lincoln cents also illustrate the evolution of minting technology and quality control. The mint process involves hundreds of steps, from creating dies to striking planchets under high pressure. Even with modern machinery, occasional errors slip through, whether due to die misalignment, metal imperfections, or human oversight. Each surviving error coin serves as a tangible record of that process, allowing collectors to trace the coin's journey from raw metal to finished currency. Ultimately, the 1970s Lincoln cent series demonstrates how even coins produced in vast numbers, billions struck annually, can contain hidden rarities that excite collectors. From dramatic double dies to subtle die cracks, off-center strikes to planchet anomalies, proof coin variations to experimental metals, the decade offers a wealth of numismatic treasures. The story of these coins is not just one of metal and minting. It is a narrative of chance, history, and human curiosity, capturing the imagination of collectors who delight in uncovering the unexpected within ordinary pennies. As we continue exploring the 1970s Lincoln cents, it becomes clear that understanding their value requires a nuanced look at both rarity and condition. Collectors pay close attention to the state of preservation, the subtle details that distinguish a high-grade coin from a worn one. Even coins struck from the same die can differ dramatically in appearance depending on how they circulated. A 1970s double die obverse in uncirculated condition may have sharp, clear doubling and crisp detail in Lincoln's hair, the motto, and date. The same coin circulated for months or years might retain some doubling, but where can obscure the features, reducing its collector appeal. Condition is paramount. Professional grading systems, such as PCGS or NGC, assign a numeric grade from 1 to 70, with 70 representing a perfect coin. A coin graded MS65, mint state 65, shows strong luster and minimal marks, whereas MS67 or MS68 examples are exceptionally rare for modern pennies due to the sheer volume of circulation and minor imperfections that inevitably occur during production. High-grade 1970s Lincoln cents, especially error coins like the 1970 SDDO or the 1972 double die, can command prices in the thousands of dollars, illustrating how condition magnifies value even for coins struck in billions. Let's examine specific error examples to understand why collectors are drawn to them. The 1970s small-date Lincoln cent is one of the first discoveries that numismatists often look for in the decade. Unlike the large-date version, the small date shows differences in the size and placement of the numerals. Identifying it requires careful comparison to reference charts, and authenticated small-date coins can sell for several $100s in uncirculated grades. For collectors, spotting a small-date coin in a bag of change is akin to finding a needle in a haystack, and that thrill is part of what makes collecting these coins addictive. The 1970s double die obverse is another dramatic example. Unlike subtle doubling in minor varieties, this error exhibits strong, unmistakable doubling on the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date. Lincoln's face may also show visible doubling, creating a ghost-like effect. These coins are often highlighted in auction catalogs and are among the most sought-after modern Lincoln cents. High-grade examples, particularly in MS65 or above, can fetch $3,000 to $10,000 depending on market conditions and the coin's eye appeal. Collectors actively search for these coins, examining rolls, collections, and even circulation finds. Off-center strikes are another fascinating category. Coins with minor off-center strikes, say 5 to 15%, are relatively common and may command a small premium, typically a few dollars above face value. However, extreme off-center strikes of 50% or more are highly prized, as they display dramatic portions of Lincoln or the memorial cut off, creating a visually striking effect. When such coins are in uncirculated condition, they can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Each off-center strike is unique, and no two coins will exhibit the exact same pattern, adding to their collectible allure. Planchet errors, though rarer, are among the most intriguing anomalies of the 1970s. Coins struck on the wrong metal, for example, A penny struck on a dime or nickel planchet are immediately noticeable due to differences in size, weight, and color. Such coins are exceptionally rare because most were detected and destroyed during production. Surviving examples, often authenticated and graded, can fetch prices in the low thousands. These coins are prized not just for rarity, but for the story they tell. A brief, accidental divergence in the minting process that transformed a simple penny into a collector's treasure. Die cracks and die polish lines provide yet another layer of variety. These subtle anomalies, often visible only under magnification, are the result of stress on the dies or minor corrective work. While they may seem insignificant, they add uniqueness to a coin. Each die crack is distinct, and collectors catalog these imperfections meticulously. Coins with pronounced cracks or unusual patterns, especially in high grade, can be more valuable than ordinary circulation coins. Proof coins from the 1970s also present a rich field for collectors. The San Francisco Mint produced proof sets with coins struck on polished planchets and specially prepared dies, creating mirror-like surfaces and exceptional detail. Proof Lincoln cents from 1970-1979 are highly desirable, particularly in MS65 or higher. Small date proofs, in particular, are rarer than large date varieties and can command significant premiums. Minor die anomalies on proof coins, such as faint doubling or die clashes, further increase collector interest. Understanding the market for 1970s pennies requires recognizing the interplay between rarity, condition, and error type. Regular circulation strikes from Philadelphia and Denver, while abundant, can still be valuable in high grades. Coins with major errors or rare varieties often see the most dramatic price fluctuations. Auction records, dealer listings, and online sales indicate that high-grade error coins, particularly doubled dies or extreme off-center strikes, can command thousands of dollars. The value of a coin is often a combination of tangible rarity, visual appeal, and collector demand at a given time. Collectors also value the story behind each coin. For example, the 1974 aluminum penny experiment tells a tale of rising copper prices, legislative intervention, and mint experimentation. These coins, even in their surviving fragments or records, are tangible evidence of economic and historical forces at work. Similarly, doubled dies and off-center strikes reveal the imperfections inherent in mass production, turning ordinary coins into objects of fascination. Each coin becomes a narrative artifact, bridging technical detail with history and human curiosity. Roll hunting, the practice of searching through bank rolls for rare coins, remains a popular pursuit among collectors. A single bag of pennies might contain a 1970 small date, a 1972 double die obverse, or a minor off-center strike. The excitement of discovering a rare coin in circulation, often by chance, is central to the enduring appeal of 1970s Lincoln cents. Collectors take pride in identifying, authenticating, and preserving these finds, building collections that document the era's minting processes and anomalies. The decade's pennies also illustrate the evolution of minting technology and quality control. Despite industrial precision, billions of coins produced annually cannot achieve absolute perfection. Machines wear, dies crack, and small mistakes create collectible anomalies. Each surviving error coin is a testament to the complexity and fallibility of large-scale production, capturing a moment in time where human oversight, mechanical stress, and raw materials intersected. In conclusion, the 1970s Lincoln cents are far more than their face value. They embody history, production stories, and the thrill of discovery. From subtle die cracks to dramatic doubled dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, proof variations, and small date distinctions, the decade offers a wealth of collectible opportunities. High-grade and rare error coins command thousands of dollars in the market, while ordinary circulated examples still hold fascination for collectors exploring the hidden nuances of production. Each penny is a bridge between ordinary currency and collectible art, a snapshot of American industrial history, and a piece of numismatic storytelling that continues to captivate collectors decades after it left the mint. As we continue, one of the most fascinating aspects of 1970s Lincoln cents is not only the errors themselves, but how these coins perform in the market and auctions. While a regular circulation strike may remain near face value, rare error coins can generate incredible excitement. For instance, a 1970s double die obverse has appeared in online and live auctions selling for anywhere between $3,000 and $7,500, depending on its grade. High-grade examples, certified MS66 or MS67, are particularly sought after, as very few survive in pristine condition after decades of circulation and handling. Collectors often bid aggressively for such coins, knowing that these errors are finite and cannot be reproduced. Similarly, extreme off-center strikes attract collector interest for their dramatic appearance. Some auction houses have reported off-center strikes of 50% to 70% selling for $500 to over $1,500, particularly when the strike is sharp and the coin retains its original luster. These coins are visually striking because they look almost like abstract art, a perfect slice of Lincoln or the memorial frozen in a misaligned frame. The uniqueness of each coin adds to its collectible story. No two off-center strikes are exactly alike, making each one an individual treasure. Planchet errors are among the most coveted for serious collectors. A 1970s penny struck on a nickel or dime planchet, or one exhibiting a lamination flaw, can command thousands of dollars. A genuine example of a 1970 penny struck on a dime planchet, authenticated by NGC or PCGS, might sell for $3,000 to $5,000 or more, largely because surviving specimens are extremely rare. Planchet errors demonstrate the accidental artistry of the mint, showing that even in mass production, anomalies can occur that transform a mundane coin into a coveted collectible. Proof coins are another area where the 1970s Lincoln cents shine. San Francisco proof sets, produced for collectors, often feature small date and large date variations. A 1975 small date proof cent, for example, is rarer than its large date counterpart and can sell for $200 to $400 in uncirculated grades, sometimes more if minor die anomalies exist. Collectors value these proof coins for their mirror-like finish and exceptional detail, as well as for subtle production quirks that make each coin slightly unique. Grading is an essential element in determining value. Coins are evaluated for luster, strike quality, surface preservation, and eye appeal. The Sheldon scale, ranging from 1 to 70, is the standard. A coin graded MS65 is mint state with strong luster and few marks, while MS67 represents near perfection, nearly flawless. Error coins in higher grades command exponentially higher prices than their circulated counterparts. For example, a 1972 double die obverse MS67 can sell for $10,000 or more, while a worn 1972 DDO, in circulated condition, may be worth only a few $100s. The difference illustrates how condition interacts with rarity to create value. Collectors also love the thrill of discovery in 1970s pennies. Coin roll hunting is one of the most popular activities for enthusiasts. A single bag of pennies from a bank could contain a small date 1970s, a 1972 double die obverse, or a minor off-center strike. The excitement of identifying an error in everyday circulation is a huge part of the appeal. Each discovery is unique. Even two off-center strikes or two small-date pennies can differ slightly in detail, color, or luster, giving collectors the joy of personal investigation. Another interesting factor is die variation tracking. The 1970s Lincoln cents exhibit subtle differences that may not be obvious at first glance. Repunched mint marks, slight shifts in lettering, and die polish lines create collectible variations. For instance, a 1977 D repunched mint mark shows evidence of the letter D being stamped twice, slightly misaligned. While not as dramatic as double dies, repunched mint marks are recognized and cataloged by collectors and add another layer of collectible nuance to the decade. The cultural significance of Lincoln cents adds depth to their collectability. Abraham Lincoln, featured on the obverse, is a figure universally recognized for leadership, moral fortitude, and historical importance. The reverse, with the Lincoln Memorial, symbolizes unity and remembrance. Collectors appreciate these coins not only as numismatic items, but also as pieces of American history. Even subtle variations or errors carry additional significance because they represent production artifacts from a time when the United States was navigating both economic challenges and evolving mint technology. Market interest in 1970s pennies remained strong, particularly among collectors focused on modern errors. While coins from the early 20th century may fetch higher prices due to rarity or historical significance, the 1970s coins are abundant, yet their errors and variations create scarcity in a different way. For instance, a collector might search for a high-grade 1970 S small date or a 1972 double die obverse for years, and even though billions of pennies exist from these years, only a tiny fraction are true high-grade error coins. This scarcity drives demand and, by extension, price. Collectors also invest in educational resources to identify these coins. Reference books, online databases, and auction records provide guidance on spotting doubling, off-center strikes, planchet errors, and proof varieties. Websites and communities dedicated to Lincoln cent collecting allow enthusiasts to compare coins, verify authenticity, and share discoveries. Knowledgeable collectors understand that while millions of pennies were produced, only a handful of error examples in mint condition exist for each variety, and these become the focus of intense interest. Additionally, the story behind each coin is part of the value. For example, the 1974 aluminum penny experiment tells a fascinating tale, a short-lived attempt to save costs during a period of rising copper prices. Congress ultimately rejected these coins due to concerns about vending machine compatibility, and most of the test coins were destroyed. Surviving examples are legendary, not just for rarity, but for the narrative of experimentation, economics, and legislative oversight they represent. Similarly, off-center strikes, double dies, and planchet errors each tell a story of a moment in the minting process where something unusual happened, creating a collectible artifact. The 1970s Lincoln cents also reveal patterns of production and human error. Despite the advanced machinery and quality control procedures, small mistakes were inevitable. Dies cracked, polishing left faint lines, and misalignments occasionally occurred. Collectors see these imperfections as part of the charm of modern coinage. Each error coin is a snapshot of production history, a physical record of what happened at the moment it was struck, capturing both human and mechanical influence. The decade concludes with 1979, where subtle varieties continue to intrigue collectors. Minor die cracks, polishing lines, repunched mint marks, and small proof anomalies persist, maintaining the interest in the series. While these coins may not be as dramatic as the 1972 DDO or the rare aluminum experiments, they complete the decade's narrative, illustrating the evolution of minting, the consistency of design, and the surprises that even billions of coins can produce. In essence, the 1970s Lincoln cents are an extraordinary combination of mass production and uniqueness. They are ordinary pennies with the potential for extraordinary stories. From double dies to off-center strikes, planchet errors, proof variations, small date distinctions, and subtle die cracks, the decade is filled with collectible gems waiting to be discovered. The combination of rarity, condition, historical significance, and human fascination ensures that even decades later, collectors remain passionate about these humble yet captivating coins. Understanding the value of 1970s Lincoln cents requires careful attention to grading and condition, as well as knowledge of specific anomalies. Every collector learns quickly that two pennies from the same year can be worlds apart in value. For instance, a 1970 S small date in circulated condition may only be worth a few dollars, while a pristine, high-grade uncirculated specimen, properly authenticated, can sell for hundreds. The grade reflects more than just surface wear. It encompasses luster, strike sharpness, and overall eye appeal. Luster, the way light reflects off the coin's surface, is particularly important for coins from the 1970s because circulation tends to dull even coins that were initially struck with brilliance. Coins with original mint luster intact command higher prices, as collectors prize the visual beauty along with rarity. The mint state scale, ranging from MS 60 to MS 70, allows collectors to differentiate subtle levels of perfection. An MS 60 coin may be uncirculated but show contact marks and minor imperfections, while an MS 65 exhibits strong luster, minimal handling marks, and sharp detail in Lincoln's hair and the memorial columns. MS 67 or higher is exceedingly rare for 1970s pennies, particularly for error varieties like double dies or off-center strikes, because even small imperfections during striking or handling prevent coins from achieving such a high grade. Professional authentication becomes essential for collectors looking to verify these high-grade coins and to determine appropriate market value. Spotting rare errors in circulation requires careful observation and some specialized tools. A magnifying glass or loupe is almost mandatory for detecting subtle doubling on the 1970 S or 1972 double die obverse coins. While dramatic doubling can be visible to the naked eye, many collectors use 5x or 10x magnification to inspect the lettering in Liberty, the date, and In God We Trust for signs of offset doubling. Die cracks and polishing lines are often faint and require similar magnification. Experienced collectors learn to compare coins side by side with reference examples, noting small variations in letter thickness, spacing, and the alignment of design features that off-center strikes are easier to detect without magnification, yet each coin is unique. Coins misaligned by 10 to 20% may look ordinary at first glance, but a coin struck 50% or more off-center creates a striking visual effect. Even minor off-center strikes can command premiums, while dramatic strikes are more valuable because they are rarer and visually striking. Collectors often search for coins with eye appeal, as the combination of unusual placement and preservation creates the highest value. Planchet errors present a different kind of challenge. Coins struck on blanks intended for other denominations, such as a penny struck on a dime or nickel planchet, are immediately noticeable by size, weight, and color. Less obvious are clipped planchets or planchets with lamination flaws, which can create raised or missing areas in the metal. These anomalies are often cataloged in error coin guides, and authenticated examples can command substantial prices due to rarity and interest. The story behind the anomaly, the fact that it represents a single moment of accidental production, adds to its appeal. Proof coins from the 1970s require careful examination as well. The San Francisco Mint produced proof sets each year with polished planchets and specially prepared dies. These coins are mirror-like and display sharper details than circulation strikes. Small date versus large date distinctions are particularly important for collectors, as small date proofs are rarer and command higher market prices. Collectors also look for die polishing lines, die clashes, or minor doubling in proofs, adding additional layers of collectible interest. Proof coins from 1970 through 1979 remain among the most desirable modern Lincoln cents, particularly when graded by PCGS or NGC. The market for 1970s pennies is driven by both rarity and condition. Coins without errors are largely common, but can still appeal to collectors seeking uncirculated sets or historical examples. Coins with errors, such as the 1970 S double die obverse or extreme off-center strikes, see higher demand. Auction houses regularly report sales of these coins, with high-grade examples selling for thousands of dollars. Market trends fluctuate based on collector interest, overall economic conditions, and the availability of certified high-grade coins. Even in modern times, coins from the 1970s continue to attract serious collectors because of their relative scarcity in high grades and the captivating nature of error varieties. Collector communities emphasize the importance of authentication. Professional services like PCGS and NGC provide certification that ensures coins are genuine and accurately graded. This becomes especially critical for high-value errors, as misidentified double dies, off-center strikes, or planchet anomalies can lead to disputes over value. Certified coins sell more confidently at auction and allow buyers and sellers to transact with assurance. Collectors also use certification to preserve their coins for future generations, ensuring that the story of the 1970s Lincoln cent remains documented and verifiable. The decade also showcases the interplay between production processes and human error. Despite the precision of the coining presses, billions of pennies were struck each year, and even small deviations create opportunities for errors. Dies cracked, planchets were slightly misaligned, and polishing or adjustments left subtle marks. Each error coin from the 1970s is essentially a unique artifact of the minting process, a tangible reminder that even in modern mass production, imperfections can occur. These imperfections are precisely what collectors prize, turning ordinary pennies into numismatic treasures. The 1970s also feature interesting mint mark varieties. Differences in size, placement, and style of the mint mark can define collectible distinctions. The 1977 D, for example, has examples with repunched mint marks, where the D shows evidence of being stamped twice. These varieties are subtle but recognizable to trained eyes, and certified examples are often cataloged in collector guides. Similarly, slight differences in the date, such as the small date versus large date distinctions in 1970 S and 1975 S proof coins, are critical for accurate identification and determine market value. Finally, the decade's pennies carry historical and cultural significance. Featuring Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, these coins are symbols of unity, history, and American identity. Collectors are drawn to them not only for their potential monetary value, but also for the story each coin tells. Every double die, off-center strike, planchet error, or subtle die crack provides a tangible connection to the minting process, economic conditions, and the human effort behind production. These coins are both small in size and enormous in historical richness, bridging the mundane and the extraordinary in the world of numismatics.